appreciate you all so much. You guys, there's gentle rain falling outside. I'm cozied up with a blanket, and we are here for part 3 of my video in the mental health series, Uncut, where I'm discussing things that I do that contribute to my overall mental well-being. I am so thankful to all of you who are out there watching. My big love to you. My big love to you. All right, so let us continue. And it's my intention today, we'll finish this video without overheating, without the battery cutting off, with plenty of time. I'm watching the cows. They're not disturbed by the rain at all. They're just happily eating the grass. Okay, things that help my mental health. I use the app Chronometer. I've suggested to all of you before Chronometer. There's a huge connection between nutrition and mental health. So it can be good, especially if you eat the same thing like over and over again, to just kind of put in things that you eat frequently. See if there's any gaps in your diet. Because if you're missing, hopefully the rain sound doesn't disturb you, if you're missing like vitamin D or vitamin B12 or like even more rare nutrients, vitamin K or different things like this, it can, even low sodium, all different kinds of things, it can impact your mental health. So just kind of being aware of where you're at nutritionally can be great. But I actually use Chronometer, and I don't think like hardly anyone uses it this way. By the way, it's a free app. It's a free nutritional app. And there's a little notes function, and I use that to take note. I use that liberally to take notes of my mental health. Like, oh, yesterday I ate more of this, and I noticed I slept really well, and today I'm really happy. Or I will even make notes of like, oh, the moon is in this position astrologically, and I notice I tend to experience this emotion or this mental health thing. So for me, it's just like a good place to keep track of things, but you could probably use any app for that purpose. But for me, I don't know, I just really like that one. Another thing that helps my mental health, I talked a little bit about goals, and I truly believe like we need to feel like we're progressing in life, like we're progressing toward goals to feel mentally healthy and well. I think this is part of our humanity. Everyone I know who has good mental health is consistently working towards things that feel meaningful to them, and they feel productive. So I do feel like we need to feel like we have a purpose, like we have value, like we're playing an important role in society or a role in some way. But for me in particular, I've found like if my goals are too strict or too like time restrained, it actually like causes mental distress rather than mental wellness. So over time, I've learned to expand like the time period around my goals. So I tend to have like weekly goals, like certain things that I know, okay, by the end of this week, I want to do this or that. You know, I want to have this done around the house, or I want to make this progress towards this project. And I also track things like nutrition and steps on a weekly average, so that like if I have a bad day, it's not like the end of the world where I feel like a failure. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't really get in a lot of steps today, but tomorrow I'll do more. And if it averages out at the end, it's still a success. So I try to give myself every opportunity to be successful by creating realistic goals in a realistic time period. And so I do the same as well with months. So I do like what I call like monthly highlights. So I tend to focus, you know, every month there are certain things I have going on with business or with YouTube or things like that. And then I try to add just 1 or 2 extra monthly highlights. Maybe special projects like, oh, this month I'd like to curate this special project, or I'd like to really make it a point to go out and try this new place in the community or things like that. So I also have monthly highlights. And for me, that just works really, really well. I've noticed in people that I know that struggle a lot with anxiety or mental health that they tend to put a lot of pressure on themselves. They tend to overschedule or schedule too much. And then they start telling themselves, you suck, you didn't do it, you're a failure. So like, I find the opposite is true. Like having like, if you have realistic goals in a realistic time period, where you're a little challenged, but not overly challenged, like that creates mental health. We actually do need to feel challenged, but we can't overdo it. So self-knowledge becomes really key for mental health. Something small, but it really does help my mental health, is I curate very carefully my promotional content. This is something that I've learned over time. So, you know, like I use Gmail. In Gmail, there's like a promotions tab. I assume it's the same for like Yahoo Mail or other mail. Those used to be just flooded. You know what I mean? Every company I'd ever bought anything from, just boom, you know, just everything, to the point I wouldn't even look at them. And over time, so I tend to do this whenever the planet Mercury changes signs, or if life just gets slow for a bit and I'm a little bit bored one day. But I actually go through now and I actually look at the promotional content I'm getting, and I unsubscribe from things that maybe I was shopping for furniture or something a while ago. Now I'm getting all this furniture advertisement, but I have the furniture I need. Well, then I'll unsubscribe. And so the reason this is helpful to mental health, one, is it just reduces mental clutter, but also it kind of makes me really, really happy, because now, like when I look at my promotions tab or promotional content, I'm actually genuinely like getting golden nuggets. Like I'm actually like getting stuff I want. So it may only be like a few stores or a couple of companies, but like everything has value to me. That's amazing. So like I recommend doing that. Like if you can, like if you have the time, curate your promotional content so you're getting, in general, curating content will support your mental health, but especially with promotional content. Now it's like just a little thing in my morning routine that I look forward to. Like, oh, like look at what kind of coupons I got today, or my favorite companies are offering this stuff. And I'm really only seeing things that I can immediately use that interest me now. So that's been super worthwhile. This, I think, is critical for my mental health. And there's a lot of ways to do this. But again, when people that I know that have good mental health, everyone seems to do this in some way. And that is save something. Save something for the end of the day that you can look forward to throughout the day. So for some people it's dessert. Like I know a lot of people who eat really, really healthy, but they save a dessert, maybe it's chocolate or something, like for the end of the day. So that could be a thing, it could be a food. For me, it's Netflix. So like I don't watch never, ever, 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 I don't watch any Netflix or entertainment types of shows during the day, ever. But I watch them at night. I usually watch just one thing. So literally this could be anything. It could be a special book that you really like that you read, or a magazine or a podcast that you only listen to at the end of the day, or a particular food that you eat, or it could be a cozy blanket, or it could be a special lotion that feels so good, or maybe you take a nice warm bath, or just something that you only do at the end of the day that you truly enjoy, and put it at the end of the day. It could be someone you talk to that you love, like, and you talk before bed, like whatever it is, something that you actually like, rather than allowing yourself to have it all the time, only allow yourself to have it like once your day's tasks are over. And then like at least throughout the day, no matter what kind of craziness happens, like you can think, oh, like I find myself sometimes when a day is really bad, I think, okay, things are not going so good right now. I'm not really enjoying this day. But then I'm like, oh yeah, tonight I'm gonna watch another episode of Bridgerton or whatever I'm watching on Netflix. I did like that. I did. I liked it. Did anybody else like it? So yeah, it varies hugely, like what I might be watching, but it just gives me something to look forward to. So I really recommend that. I really recommend taking something you love and saving it for the end of the day. I think it has super mental health benefits. Okay, two really important things. So this goes back to, for me, I use Chronometer, but you can use any journal, any notes, anything like this. I specifically note what causes harm or my theories of what's causing harm mentally, and try removing these things. So like whether it's like a specific person or a specific activity or a specific food or a specific alignment of the stars, like if I notice that something seems to be like I feel really negative, anxious, or depressed. Now for me, like I do live with an extremely rare allergic condition, so I've had to really take note. And one of the main reasons I know that, well, because to know that you're allergic, you have to get an allergy test. I'm allergic to like almost everything, but to initially order the test, you have to have a reaction. So like for years and years, I would have to eat specific things that I thought I was allergic to, see if I had a reaction, and I did over 90% of the time, and then note the reaction. So that's how I got in the habit of this. But then I realized like, oh, this isn't just for like carrots and plums and peaches and wheat and like everything else. I can use this for anything. I can use this for, oh, I read this book, or like I noticed it for certain YouTube content creators. Like I would watch them and then I would feel more fearful the next day or more negative, or I wouldn't sleep good at night, even though I liked them. So in a non-judgmental way, just an observational way, taking note, and you kind of have to be a scientist. It's hypothesis at first. Okay, I noticed that I did this thing, and then afterwards, my mental wellness seemed to decrease in some way. And I just take note. For me, I just make notes in Chronometer because it's just so organized in that way. But you could use anything. And likewise, the other side of the coin, I take note, because this has probably surprised me even more than the harm thing. Taking note of specific things that seem to help. I've had some happy accidents there, for sure. But like if I do something that I don't normally do, like I noticed, for example, some things opposite. Like there's all this data that says like if you get more sunlight, like it will improve your mental health. I think that's true for most people, but for me, when I actually did it and then I took note, it was the opposite. And then I had a day where I don't remember what was going on, but I stayed inside all day in darkness and I like only saw fairy lights, and I just like, it just did little creative projects all day. And the next day I was like 10 out of 10, just blissed out. I slept so good, like so happy. I took note, you know? So I just recommend just taking note, just pay attention to how you are impacted by the things you consume, both what you intake in your body, like food-wise, but also the impact of other people, the content, like what improves your mental health. And you can do this with physical health too, but like this is about mental health. Today's video is like what improves your physical health, and mental health, and like what are things that you think might be taking away. And this, to me, even if you can't always change it, like maybe there's a specific person and you always feel depleted or more depressed or anxious after interacting with them, even just being aware, so that the next time you're around them, even if you have to be around them, when you start to feel anxious, you can understand, oh, this isn't me, it's the person. I notice this trend. To me, taking note is extremely important. For me, it's been beneficial to my mental health to just take an interest in mental health. That might sound obvious, but like it is a topic that you can follow, like on social media and stuff like that. And some of you will know, when I was growing up, my dad was a school psychologist, but when I was really little, he was like actually studying psychology, like in his master's. And so I've been around like the psychological conversation since I was a little girl. he actually tells stories about how I was like a strange little child, in the sense like I would go around like him and the other students, and I would sit for quietly, sometimes for 2-3 hours, while they discussed like psychological topics. So I think for me, like I have a natural interest in mental health, but just like following the research. There's new research coming out all the time about things that positively contribute to mental health and things that detract from mental health. There's a ton of research on social media and mental health, for example, right now. And so, yeah, speaking of which, that's like my next note. But yeah, just following the conversation and just try stuff. Like, be a scientist. Try out things and see how it affects your mental health, because our life is so shaped by the quality of our mind. I mean, tremendously. So I mentioned it in another video, but for me, not watching the news has been critical. News is definitely addictive though. I'll acknowledge that, because sometimes I'll like accidentally see it. Like I'll be at an appointment or something like that, or I'll be visiting someone, and it's like I find myself having to actually use discipline to not continue watching it. So there's something strange about news and the news cycle. But whilst living my regular life, I don't watch the news. And I just noticed like even the brightest, even the most woke, like my most like high vibrational friends that I have will spiral. Like they meditate for hours a day. They will spiral in fear, absolute fear, anxiety. They lose their minds because of things they see on the news. And they'll come to me and say, what's your psychic sense around this? And very often it's like, you know, this isn't gonna affect you. You know what I mean? So I don't think, like as human beings, like I don't think that we're designed to know about like the problems all over the world. So I do respect everyone's choice, but like I think it's normal and natural for us to know about the news like in our local area, or I think it's healthy to be aware of news that we can do something about, where we can like make a difference. But to constantly be bombarded with information like about things that we're powerless over, I do not think that's good for our mental health. So yeah, so not watching the news has been good. Also not using social media. So I mentioned before, like at the onset of COVID, my guides like actually audibly said, do not watch the news like until further notice, which they've spoken to me audibly a few times, but it's pretty rare. Like, and when I say audibly, I mean like clairaudient, but like very, very clear, not my internal voice. The same thing happened with Instagram. So this is a long time ago. This was like 2012. My sister made me an Instagram account and showed me like the profile picture and stuff like that, and downloaded the app onto my phone. And she said, I made you this Instagram account. And they said, do not use Instagram. And so I made that choice that day. And like the account, I'm pretty sure still exists. Like you might be able to find it, but I've never logged in. And there's tons of research that shows that Instagram especially is extremely harmful to the mental health of women in particular. So sometimes I do feel sad, because like I do want to see people's videos and stuff. But overall, I think this was a great choice. I also don't scroll like the news feed on Facebook. And in particular, what I think can be helpful with social media is don't use social media to compare your life to others. So like sometimes I will use social media, like for example this, to put something out into the world, or to simply express love or appreciation for others who are creators. But I'm not using it to compare myself, the way I look or the quality of my life or whatever, to other people. And that has helped my mental health. That has helped everything, yeah. Like I don't even know. Like I notice everyone looks the same. Like out in the world, like everybody has the same hair, same makeup, same clothes, because I think they're being conditioned by Instagram or whatever, but like I'm not. So I think that's been really good for me. Something else that helps me is a mindset of like, make the most of this day. Not every day is equal. especially like as an astrologer, like some days are super good juju, some days are not. So I just wake up and just think, okay, what does it mean to make the most of today? And try just to make every day the best it can be, not compare too much to the day before. Maybe the previous day the stars were not aligned, but today they're like super aligned and like many more things are possible, or whatever the case may be. But just like, how can I make the most of this day? Forget yesterday, forget tomorrow. How can I make the most of this day? I'm gonna run out of time, you guys. It's so hard just not to blah, 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 blah. Minimalism has helped my mental health a lot, particularly the minimalist mindset of like, is this truly necessary? I think like that started out for me with physical objects. Like, do I really need this? Amazing how often like the answers become no, or like, do I have something I could use for this purpose instead? So I started applying that to like, not just physical things, but like things I do. Like, okay, I'm telling myself I have to do this task. Is this really necessary? Is this actually necessary? Like, that's how I came across this Uncut video, because I was like starting to feel frustrated sometimes in editing videos, and because of minimalism, I asked myself, is this truly necessary? And at first I was like, well, yeah, like this is what it means to, if I want to create for YouTube, and I know I want to. And then I was like, actually, maybe not. Like, maybe there's a way to do this without having to edit everything. Another thing that helps like in my mental health is having a place for everything. This is super, super helpful. Like physical objects, like everything has a place where it belongs. I feel like it keeps my mind organized inside. Like when things are just thrown all about, or something doesn't have a place, it's like my mind is out of order. So giving everything a place, like, and when I bring something new in the house, like determining what the place will be, for me, that's super helpful. Likewise, getting rid of clutter and getting rid of things that aren't being used. I don't know if it's just me, but for me, this is huge. Like if I'm holding on to something that I'm not using and I'm telling myself, you'll eventually use this, or you need to find a way to use this, or that to me is not a loving internal voice. Like to constantly look at something and like, you gotta find a way to use that, or like stuff like that. It just feels forcing. Now, not everyone may see it that way, but for me, I would tend to be given things and maybe not know how to use them, and then I would feel like I have to, like, to please the other person or stuff like that. So for me, routinely, I would say at least every 2 weeks, I take donations. So like keeping things going through and not holding on to stuff and saying, one day I might use this. It's like, okay, it feels so much more loving, so much better for me to pass on something to someone who may truly, truly be in need right now for themselves or their children or their family. And that feels so good, rather than holding on to something that's taking up space and just serving as a constant reminder of something I need to do. Because unused things that I might use one day is like just a reminder of like, here's something you're not doing or not using that you should. That's how it feels. And that doesn't help my mental health. Something that helps my mental health is cultivating little social interactions throughout the day. Like just taking moments to strike up conversations, pay compliments to strangers or just familiar faces or people in the checkout line. I always just feel so good when I do that, and I can tell the other people feel good too. Okay, just a couple more. The next thing is standing as a witness to my experience, especially when it's negative emotion. So like in my internal dialogue, be like, okay, right now I'm experiencing frustration. I am experiencing anger. I am experiencing sadness. Like I am experiencing disappointment. Understanding this is a temporary experience, standing as an observer. I am a being who is currently experiencing disappointment, but I am my beingness. I am not the disappointment that I am experiencing, though this is a part of the human journey. Another thing that I think has helped my mental health, this was the guides too as well. I do not drink alcohol. I do not and never have used any drugs. I do not, you guys are not gonna even hear this. I do not consume sugar. So yeah, again, this was the guides. They spoke audibly. Same thing with alcohol. No, never. Like, now I know now I would have had anaphylaxis, possibly death from alcohol due to my allergies. But yeah, like no drugs, no alcohol. I've noticed like in friends who use substances like that, there tends to be highs, but for every high, there's a low of equal measure. And so that is not good for the mental health, okay? To each their own, but refraining from substances has been beneficial to my mental health. Approaching life as a science experiment. I've mentioned this a couple times in this video, but just taking a scientific approach, hypothesizing, hey, maybe this thing will help my mental health or physical health. For conducting experiments, let me try it. Do I feel better? A lot of experiments, they do turn out kind of neutral, but sometimes you get like really good results, like, whoa, like, yeah, that was super effective. Like, let me continue with that. Like for supplements or stuff like that, sometimes it's like, oh, actually that really took me, that actually decreased things. A lot of times it's like no change. But either way, like I consistently conduct experiments to see what results in feeling better. For me, I consider it a part of my job. I need to be in high vibrational energy, in alignment, vibing high to support and assist my clients as best as I can and to connect to the spirit world, to keep my frequency connected to the spirit world. So I need to feel good. So like I conduct experiments, and being experimental and actually not making assumptions like, oh, someone said this works in this way, so, but just like actually test stuff for you, observe the results, and then if it's good results, keep doing it. And the final thing is just a little thing, but it does help my mental health. I put a sticker on the calendar at the end of every day. Like colorful stickers on a big calendar on the fridge. And this is just my way of just being like, hey, you did it. Like you did another day. Every challenge that today brought, you responded to. You know, you did your day's work. You learned something, you created something, like you lived another day in this life as Maya Joy. And it just giving credit for just even being alive, like today for another day. We don't know how many days we have here in these bodies. It could end at any moment, but like when I see those stickers on a monthly basis, it just reminds me of like, you know, each one of those represents like a day's work that I completed, a day's goals. And so that means something to me. And just to see the progress as I move through the week, as I move through the months. So ending each day with a sticker. And it doesn't have to be a sticker, it just, I think, a moment to just acknowledge, hey, you did this day. You did your best today. You completed another day. And that is contributing to your soul's journey. I think that's good for the mental health. And I think listening to the rain is good for the mental health, you guys. And I think watching the rain, can you see that? I think watching the rain is good for the mental health.